Generosity is really about compassion, compassion for other people, for other causes. It is not only a generosity that comes from writing checks, but also it's a generosity of heart.
Most people think of generosity as a virtue, which it certainly is. I think it's also an art that requires patience and skill and intelligence.
A generous person is one who, when they see a real need, really steps forward and says, I can help and I want to help.
It's also a form of relationship. It's a reciprocal activity where people are benefited by the generosity and are tremendously grateful, and that gives the person who has been generous an opportunity to see the results of his work, but also to test its success. It's a very special part of human life, and much of what's good about our world comes from generosity.
I think growing up in rural Virginia, life was a bit of a struggle. Growing up on a farm and certainly not experiencing any luxuries of life. He was in touch with the needs of people in that small community, and that stuck with him.
He's been very successful beyond his wildest dreams when he was working at the radio station years ago. I don't believe money was his object. It was pursuit of business and entrepreneurship and helping other people.
I guess his being in the radio and then television business, he was already very active in the community. He was on almost every board down there. After we were married, I was called on to take my part.
I've known JB for more than 40 years. I first met JB when he was the chairman of the Democratic Party of Georgia. I developed tremendous admiration for him at that point.
He's owned over 200 companies. I can only name 20 or 30, including seed companies and lawnmower companies and leather companies and companies like Pier 1 Imports.
I think what motivates him is one of the fascinating questions about J.B. Fuqua. He is a very active person. When he decides on something, his decision is then implemented, and he enjoys having action associated with decisions. But I think he is very motivated by doing things that he believes will have some domino effect.
The Duke connection came about through our friendship with President Sanford. He visited us at one time and asked, telling JB his plan and his dream for a business school, and asked him if he would be interested.
Terry and I had decided that we really would have to, in order to raise the money that we needed for the school, which in those days we had set a campaign of $20 million, we needed $10 million to name the school.
I think we were in the airplane on our way back to Atlanta when he called Terry and said, I'll give you the money to build your business school.
His gift raised the bar for the university. At the time that he gave it, it was by far the most generous gift that we had had other than J.B. Dukes himself. And it gave everyone the sense that an infusion of support of that kind could allow a school to just progress by leaps and bounds.
I suggested a fairly long name, something like the Fuqua Graduate School of Business at Duke University, and he said, that's too long. Let's just call it the Fuqua School of Business. I said, okay, Terry, that's what it is.
Here was Duke in its early years with a business school, trying to struggle through to see how it could sort of make the big time, how it could do things. And there was J.B. saying, this makes some sense.
That therefore raised everyone's ambitions, made us, as Terry Sanford would have said, more outrageous in our ambitions, because we knew that we could do it. And J.B. Fuqua's gift made that clear in a way that had never really been true at Duke before.
The big gift allowed us to have a building, have office space, have classrooms, bring in good faculty, and then the students will come, and sure enough they did. And so we've ended up being one of the top 10 schools.
JB's commitment to the school, of course, is a wonderful inspiration to all of us who've had any association. It's been a real pleasure, just a pleasure to try to be of service to the school and to follow in JB's footsteps, so to speak.
He's been generous not just here, but to many, many organizations. I once saw a list of some of his donations, and the list went on for pages. And Mr. Fuqua has given over, I think, over $130 million away to all kinds of different charities and wonderful events
I've been impressed with the breadth of his interest, the depth of his vision, and how much he has succeeded in using his funds to make investments that have really been beneficial in very broad ways. In a remarkably prescient move on his part, he determined that one of the major contributions that he personally could make to seeing a peaceful, positive development was to expose up-and-coming, aspiring young Russians to the fundamentals of capitalist business management. He contributed $4 million to establish a training program.
And now I understand that some of those students, with Russia's economy booming along and it being 15 years later, are major business leaders in Russia. And the Fuqua School is one of the best-known business schools in Russia.
He likes to establish what I call centers of excellence. One of those is the new Fuqua Heart Center. It is designed to attract some of the very finest cardiologists in America.
He was very instrumental in getting David Thomas interested in the creation of the Thomas Center.
As we developed the notion of the Executive Education Center and had a number of conversations with Dave about that possibility, JB finally convinced Dave that this was a very important thing to do.
I have watched the work that he has undertaken and the money he has given to establish the Fuqua Center for Late Life Depression at Emory University. And one of the things that he and I are working on most these days to try to diminish, if not to eliminate, the stigma that is associated with depression.
His gifts to the Botanical Garden have really made it a world-class center, and that's primarily due because of his affection for my mother.
I told him that we needed a conservatory, or we wouldn't be a first-class garden, and Atlanta needed a first-class garden. And he said, well, how much would it cost? I said, I'll find out. Later, I told him at dinner one night, I said it would be at least $1 million. So he didn't say anything. A few weeks later, he came in and said he'd put $2 million in the bank for me to use for my project. And I was flabbergasted.
So, I mean, he's a man who, he made it, but more importantly, he is giving it.
He really gives, and gives a good fraction of what he has to support other people.
They're a very philanthropic family, and that falls right down to Rex as well.
Generosity has been part of our family ever since I was a child. And so I was influenced early on to look at giving as part of receiving.
We're all very proud of him and what he's accomplished with the conditions that have affected his life.
It's customary to talk about selfless givers. He is.
I recall a poem that goes something like this. It isn't how we die, it's how we live. It isn't what we take from life, it's what we give. And JB has been a lifetime of giving.